Not all tournaments on DraftKings and FanDuel are basically lottery tickets, but some definitely are. DraftKings at least gets about 200,000 people each and every week to pay $20 to enter the NFL Millionaire Maker. What people don't realize, their results would just be so much better if just instead they use that money to play. We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by Underdog Fantasy. Today I'm going to give you 6 reasons that playing small field tournaments will increase both your ROI on DraftKings and FanDuel. But before we get into that, I would like to thank the sponsor of this video, RunTheSims.com, a premium fantasy tool site for season-long DFS and prop betting. A new spin on fantasy sports and DFS tools where we're leaning on 10,000 simulations for each game as the primary value driver. And as many of you know, I was so impressed with what they were building. RunTheSims.com is now the official tools partner of the Joe Holka Show, the exact optimizer and data that I'll be using to construct my own DraftKings and FanDuel lineups all season long. We talk about it a lot around here, but anytime you can find a system that just simplifies everything into one easy to use product, that's going to be incredibly valuable for every level of player. So if you'd like to make the smart move like many from the community have already done, feel free to use the link in the description below and join us in leveraging the next frontier of lineup optimizers and simulation tools, which by the way, that link does support the channel, so thank you. And if you'd like to get $50 off on your NFL season bundle today, be sure and use code HOLKA at checkout. I'm also giving away 4 signed NFL jerseys at the end of the month. Absolutely free to join if you register a pristine auction with, you guessed it, code HOLKA, or use the link in the pinned comment of this video. All of this literally takes less than 30 seconds to enter, so don't miss out. If we can impress these guys enough with how strong our community is, maybe there will be even more giveaways throughout the NFL season. Wouldn't that be awesome? All right, let's do this. The problem with these tournaments like the Millionaire Maker on DraftKings isn't really that 30% of the prize pool is being awarded to first place. That is an issue, but it's not the only problem. In fact, some people would prefer that type of structure, but before we get to that type of thing, what does matter is field size. Jumping right into it, number 1, being perfect is not required in small field tournaments. Fewer opponents or lineups almost always leads to a lower first place score. Shocking concept. Guys, there's nothing worse than that 1% owned player that you have to have in order to compete. You may survive a guy like that in small field, or even be live to still win a tournament at that point. I've seen it happen, and people just don't play them enough because there's not that huge first place prize that turned $20 into $1 million. Great. Reason number 2, it's easier to build optimal lineups. I'm serious, and the reason it's easier is because you can build larger stacks. Essentially, you're just making less decisions, which is something I always recommend when building your lineups, but clearly plus EV in smaller tournaments, no doubt, because we don't need that 99th percentile outcome to win. Remember, you know, that unique 9-leg parlay that it takes to turn $20 into $1 million on DraftKings. So I'm embracing more correlation, larger stacks, more people from a certain game, because I'm wrong a lot. I would gladly trade down for an increased likelihood of reaching that 90th to 95th percentile outcome, because that's more than enough to threaten to win a small field GPP. I was late to this entire concept. If you can be thoughtful about how you're understacking or overstacking based on the tournament that you're in, that's just absolutely huge. Reason number 3, not only is it easier to build lineups, it's actually much easier to gain leverage on the field. So we'll talk a little bit more on single entry versus 3 max GPPs in a different video. Frankly, it's a much larger discussion, but you'll see ownership condense around the best plays in small field GPPs even more than something like the Millionaire Maker with 200,000 people. I would imagine a lot of those people don't know what the best plays are, so this is actually a good thing from a small field perspective because it's just more predictable, and if it's more predictable, we can benefit from something that we know is coming. People are just convinced they have it all figured out for a week, or that this play just has to be the value play in your lineups. What happens if he's not? Sure, that's going to help you in a larger field tournament, but if you can just take a leg up and basically pass a significant amount of the field in a smaller field tournament, that can be enough for you to cash right there. But it's also going to make your lineup different or lead you to a different lineup construction that maybe the field just agreed was optimal for that week. You want to be on the other side of that if you want to get to these top end type of payouts. The 4th reason that you should be playing small field tournaments on DraftKings and FanDuel is that these non-featured tournaments are actually incredibly soft. And I'll show you guys right now what I'm talking about here. The first thing that most people are going to do when they're going to be choosing their tournaments on DraftKings is they're going to go to this feature tab. They're going to see that there's a $5 tournament that you can win $1 million to first place. But what a lot of people just skip right over is this tab right below the feature tab. And this is the tournaments tab. We can actually play much smaller tournaments if we were going to adjust this by field size as well. Let's say that we want our max field size to be 100 people. There's a ton of these that we can be playing, and these will fill up as the week is going on, especially during the NFL season where things are incredibly liquid. I'd be playing as many of these as possible. It might not be as exciting for you to play a $5 100-man tournament, win just under $70 for first place, but if you're building a bankroll, those type of wins stacked on top of one another, obviously you're going to be playing more than one of these tournaments like we talked about. The upside kind of similar in a roundabout way, and your ROI will be much better because, again, you don't need that top score to get there. So if you end up playing a lot of different tournaments at the lower dollars, it's definitely one of the things that I think is super underutilized in DFS across the board. I would be absolutely hammering these 100-man tournaments if you were new trying to build a bankroll. Reason number 5, it's not sexy, but it works. You can absolutely build a bankroll by getting lucky, banking a large tournament. I'd simply just rather compete to win these top heavy payout structures more often, much more frequently actually, and level up my stakes slowly. That's the way I did it. Reason number 6 to play small field tournaments on DraftKings and FanDuel, some of the best GPPs that you can enter are posted closer to lock. And guess what? DraftKings is actually going to add smaller secondary tournaments if the larger featured GPPs that I showed you before fill early. And that's a huge deal because they're obviously smaller field tournaments like we talked about. We want to do that, but they're also more casual opponents. There's more people sitting on their couch hungover on a Sunday making lineups on their phone. And there's also, more often than not, more favorable prize structures because they need to entice people to play these tournaments so that they do fill and there's not a ton of overlap. Do you have more success in large field or small field tournaments? Let me know in the comments, all right? Good talk.